But yeah, thanks for that advice.
All right. Okay, you're on.
Going way back, it is working. It is working.
Awesome. Long may it continue. Well, a couple of big developments were the arrival of O3 full and O4 mini high.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
if
love
you,
04 mini high, by the way.
yeah, I love O3. Like that's like my new best friend. Like it's fucking, it's
04 mini
everything.
is
That
cool.
thing.
4.1 hasn't dropped here yet.
No, it's API only.
Don't have access.
It's API only.
Right.
It's never gonna
Okay, that'll be
come to
mine. I
the,
just keep on checking.
yeah. It's just never gonna come to the Chat GPT. Yeah.
Well, I can use 04 mini is good enough to write Python. I could probably just use that. But
Yeah. So I've just been doing
they're on
everything,
Cloudly.
and I've barely used O1 Pro anymore, the old venerable soldier, and I see O1 Pro has been shunted off to. Oh, you can't even choose it now? Oh no, wait, sorry. Yeah, O1 Pro's off in the more models tab down here.
Oh,
The exit
he's
lounge.
been put out to pasture. Poor old guy.
I think it was too
Oh
expensive,
well, hope
eh?
they give
Like
him a
I
good
think,
retirement.
yeah,
Yeah,
but O3
yeah.
Pro is due any they said in the next couple of weeks, and O3 is the most amazing machine that I've ever seen. So O3 Pro will be like a pure delight, I would imagine.
Yeah. There's I checked for it, but it's not here yet. But I don't know whether that's because they're doing a rolling rollout. But Gemini Flash is coming.
Mm,
It's probably landed somewhere.
okay.
Um,
All right,
but
so
I'm very happy with these guys.
yeah, so where we're at technology wise, it's been largely all front end since last we spoke.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Excellent.
back end's still the same, still works perfectly fine, loads at great speed, runs entirely on an S3 bucket, all that stuff. So that's all good. In the front end, I lost 2 days due to a bug in the way that packages were being bundled, which was frustrating and a waste of time. There's just been like maybe another day's worth of lost time from bugs due to configuration and build tools and all that. So it's been quite rocky getting to make a nice stable front end client so that the browser can actually connect to the back end. I don't know honestly how much more the back end needs. If you ignore the execution part, the back end's pretty much it's more or less done. Like it's stable. I've been using it, hitting it all week, no problems. So I get the thing that we need to figure out with the back end is how to. Can you see my screen at the moment?
Yep, I can.
Yeah. So there's a way. Um, there's a bunch of social network features that you can get. Right. This is sort of a loose list of all the features that any social network might contain, and so the question for us is to, once we have repos as the base unit, how do we arrange them in relationships with each other to form the social network, the minimum version that we need just to launch with? So I can take a guess at it, but that would be worth a good discussion just to figure out how that's going to work and where the data is going to move.
I can suggest a very minimal touch on it is an
Yeah.
API into Signal, where there's a mapping of identities between Signal and the portal.
But that's not the same.
And
That's just simply that's just using Signal as an identity source. That's not talking about
and a data source, but not
yeah.
the next layer, because I was saying that's the absolute kind of minimum, because that's
Right. No,
effectively
well,
the two
yeah,
of you
so
guys can
so
use
in
it.
there it's like, well, if you're in a Signal group with someone, is the Signal group represented as a repo on its own? Is the group independent of the people within it? Or is it something that's
I think, remember that hierarchical repo structure you're talking about.
yeah.
So at the top, organization, then project, uh, and the project owner can kick people off or invite them in
Mm.
based on a list of people who are in the org.
Right, so
It's pretty
that's different
simplistic.
to chats. That's more hard, more laborsome version of permission, which is it's like project inclusion. That's different to
Yeah, because
chat.
it needs a manual. Yeah, exactly. And you can't reach out without going through. One project can't at the moment talk to each other without going back to some kind of common room space. Sometimes they do, and reach out and saying, "Hey, any of you other guys are doing this," and then sometimes it results in the sharing of ideas on the common group, which are pulled in,
Right,
but then there's no sync between them. Um, we should expect, if
right, right,
saying, "Oh,
right,
that's a good
right.
idea," I'll pull that in, and then the guys who did it in the first place improve it, doesn't get automatically
So
pulled over.
maybe a chat could be represented as a branch that's just shared between multiple people. So like I would make a branch called group chat 1 and then I would invite you into it, and now basically we both have a copy of the branch. Like if we're both admin, then we both have a copy of the branch and we can both make large scale changes to the branch, like kick someone
Yep,
off or
yep.
rename it or whatever. And then other people that can come into it just have different permissions on the branch, where they're like, I can only read that branch, or I can only so basically we need just per branch permissions, and we should be able to do group chats plus projects
Yeah.
are
I mean, how different are group chats to just comments on a branch? It seems pretty similar.
comments. You mean like issues and things? Or
Mm,
yeah, I don't
yeah.
see any reason why they wouldn't be. It's just that they are affiliated with the actor, so they're not affiliated with the project. They can talk about a project and reference a project and pull snippets in, but the where they live is in your personal repo as just filed under chats, like as a
Mm,
branch. And it needs to be a branch because what I'm finding is that the ability to have permissions on the file system at a per file level is
mm,
it's hard to do. It's hard to do because it's very difficult to you could do it for write, but it's very hard to do for read because you leak quite a lot of information around the data. Like say if you had a folder and in that folder there was a file called top secret and another folder was called share this with my buddy. When you go share this with my buddy, it when I read it, I may not be able to access the contents of top secret file, but just by the nature of the way that Git structures its folders, I will be able to see the file name top secret. So
Okay.
so the read permission
Right.
inside a file system is very problematic.
Can you just pause for a second
Sure.
here? Because this is convergent with something I was doing. One of the War Fabric things are that people have clearance. And so you go from unclassified, classified, secret, and then top secret brackets, project name, say.
Mm.
And so long as you have personally clearance, then you can go in and look at whatever is labeled as that. But that's at a file level. So maybe we need to just think about that as a repo level. That
Repo, it would be, it's best suited to be repo level. It can, with good success, be branch level, but it is strongest at repo level. You can do it at branch level without too much fuss, but like this is really good because we're now talking about the requirements that we have and where they fit within the parts of the structure that's easy to put it and hard to put it. When you put it in a branch, like having branch access or repo access is kind of like it's a little bit too close, you know, like it would be ideal if it could be on a per project level. A per repo level, sorry, I meant. I was thinking that a project is a repo.
What's the effort in having an org repo, which essentially is controlling who has what access level?
So
Having
the way I've been modeling orgs is that at the very first repo in the whole system is the host repo, and that is unique to the hosting infrastructure that you are choosing to run on. If someone else fires up their own instance of the hosting software, they too will make a host repo. That host repo is it's sort of like the hyperconvergence point, where it's a repository embodiment of the hosting hardware that the hoster supplies and pays for, and the hosting repo manages everything that's happening within it. So it's like the boot, or that little mini operating system you get right before you get your full multi-user operating system. You get this, like a hypervisor thing kicks off, a little mini thing.
Okay.
Then the very next level is actors. So if you authenticate to a level that the hosting infrastructure accepts, which can be set by the hosting infrastructure to whatever they want, once you've authenticated, then you will have a repo that is your actor repo. Then if you want to make an org is just, you made a child repo and then you set it free. Like you made it be, it's no longer something you control. It's something that sits next to you that you may still have some permissions over, but it effectively looks like an actor. It's at the same level as the active repos. It concerns itself with the same things like permissions, paying the bill. And so then that org would make child repos, and you could set the permissions at the org level that would ripple down to the child repos as deep as you want to go. You could set
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could
So
set some permissions on a per repo level. You could set some permissions halfway up the tree of repos, or you could set some permissions at the very top of the repo tree. Those would be the ones that override everything below it. Like you would need to, for example, if you were 3 levels deep and you wanted to add a new member, the top level repo would have had to grant the permission to add a new member to that lower level repo for it to even work. You should be able to set that if you want the concept of clearance levels, then I think what you're talking about is groups. And so you could set groups of users within the repo and classify them as a certain tag, like secret, top secret, and, fucking biggest mouth on the planet. And then you just assign those groups to have different roles within the repos down the tree, either on an overall schedule or individually on the repos.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good because that's how after our last conversation, I was understanding it in a terms of a hierarchy of repos as opposed to branches.
Yeah, so you could. I just would really love it if you could make the permissions be sort of per repo. It just feels much simpler to wrap my head around it.
That well, it's also I think better in terms of confidence in its use. Once you're inside the room, then yeah, sure, branch away, branch away. But getting inside the room is the security wall. Um, Getting inside the repo is security wall.
Yeah, like I
If you're
guess you
in
could
there,
think of it
then branch away, and so on.
like a repo would be like a building, and a branch would be like a room in the
Yep.
building. Sorry, a branch would be like a floor in the building, and a file would be like a room and a floor. It seems a lot simpler to be like, can I come in the building or not? Like, and then have
Yeah.
less because the price of buildings is so cheap. You can make new repos for practically nothing. Like it's about the same cost
Well, I
as a.
think that's that. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going
Sorry.
to agree.
Okay.
Um, and maybe move on because that
Cool.
structure is exactly the way well, certainly the UK military works. It's like if you're allowed in the building, you're allowed in the building because you've already got your secret classification. If you want to go down to the bunker, you need a TS. But everything in the bunker, you can wander around in, even if it's nothing to do with you. You know, get into various stores. It doesn't go down to a per room access because, by the fact that you're in the bunker, you're already cleared. So in your analogy, that works. And I
Okay.
think it's easier for people to think at the repo level because
Cool.
branches feel a bit dynamic and
Well,
like lightning strikes
they're
everywhere.
also surprisingly close to each other. Like the way that data sits is in Git. There's actually one massive lump of hashed objects, and the branches are just a graph trace through those objects. And so to say that someone can access only this portion of objects when the whole thing is designed to, if you're accessing the same thing, it's the same
Yeah,
hash.
this is not
So it's
Los Alamos, right? I mean,
nah,
even in Los Alamos, they never managed to get down to compartmentalization. It's like you're in Los Alamos, you
yeah,
try to compartmentalize, and it totally failed
yeah,
because the scientists couldn't actually talk to each other. So
yeah. So I have designed it to have some notion of branch controls but read is a nightmare, write is possible, and possibly useful. But overall, the project should be read
as curious, I would
controls.
have thought right would have been the
Write's the easy
Oh,
one.
yeah. Anyway,
Write's the easy one to control.
it's not.
But read is the hard one to control because read calls on confidentiality or viewability or the ability to imply something. Like you can read a whole lot of different ways, but there's only one way that you can write. And that's why write's simple and it's controlled by us. Whereas read, you can leak data left, right, and center in any given system.
Yeah, you're right, actually, thinking about it. It seems counterintuitive to me just to start there, but
Right.
anyone can take a photograph of the screen, which is,
Read. Yeah, right. And
leak.
there's your read
Yeah.
gone. But right, yeah,
Yeah.
good luck. Come back later. Okay, so just to clearly summarize that, um, if you have access to the repo, you can read anything in the repo. The
Yep.
access that you have to a repo is set either in the repo or in one of the parents of the repo.
Yep.
The an org is a repo that is at the same level of actors but is controlled by no one person.
Yes. And we'll talk about governance in a second, but yes.
Yeah. And branches can be protected from writing, restricted for writing, but anyone can read from them. Yeah.
Yes. Given the previous three bullets, yes.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
That's cool. And
I
then
think that.
what we need to do is choose a data structure or a convention for how we relate different branches and different things within these repos to do standard things, right? Like I've already claimed the soul branch as like that's what makes it an artifact repo, is that it has a soul branch. That's where the computation happens and where the permissions are managed. That's how you log into the repo, is you got to match the criteria specified in the soul branch. There are possibly some other branches required for things like chats, issues management, funding management, all those kinds of things. They may well take up a slot on the soul branch because they're so fundamental, but I would probably like to keep it separate. But really, the game for us now, you and me, is to arrive on a data structure that works, that can represent the features you want, given the constraints that we just laid down, which narrow down the problem considerably.
I think I can help there with a diagram, and you'll see when we switch to the next topic, because I've been getting feedback from the structure as it's just organically grown,
Right.
and it's very similar to that. The chat is quite often solely chat. So when you're, oh, no, actually, let me refine that. There are certain projects, as in signal groups. Let's call them signal groups. There are certain signal groups that are for chatting. Things like, "Hi, I'm this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I can do," and so on onboarding. They don't produce any files. They're not collaboratively working on anything. And then there are other signal groups that are working on something,
Mm-hmm.
like collaborating on building. And those seem to be the two types. Um, so there's one for leadership, where leadership talks. That's the governance piece
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about. Um, then there's one for onboarding. It's like, hey, you just turned up. Who are you? Okay. Um, there's not yet, but going to be one for OPSEC. It's like, can we tell whether you're a Russian cat or you are actually professor at MIT? Um, but these are all chats. They're not actually collaborating on stuff. And then there's a second type, which is, okay, here's a project that we're all working on. It's really that
Okay.
simple.
Those seem mechanically the same to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess
Fair enough.
what I'm trying to
And
provide to
even
you is a minimum set of controls that is like general enough and simple enough that you can express um the arrangements you want, but also that the system wasn't built for that necessarily. You could choose a different structure um as well, right? Because that's like the least amount of work for me is to make it a general sort of a simple
well, I
general.
think that that general thing is the one that's also most understood, and actually from another vector, from a couple other vectors, talking to the guys, and from my own experience, um, what you just described is all that's needed.
Awesome.
Anything more gets onerous.
Right. So and
Basically.
under that
So,
model,
mm,
that will give you the capability once we've under the hood developed the protocols to do so to run distributed repos where the hosting environment is dark edge and the features and way that you interact with it will remain identical to the version that we're promoting today. As well, the data
yeah,
structure under the hood will be identical as well.
yeah. There is one other thing which I'll just introduce, but I'm not asking for any kind of answers to because I don't think it's worth talking about right now until we get the model that you just described. Is if there are um, two or n souls, so completely different projects,
Mm.
and how they interact. But we don't need to talk about that today.
That's the same interaction
Um,
as an actor talking to another actor. I don't think that there's the hierarchy is only there to facilitate permissions and bill paying. But the mechanics of interaction between repos, apart from that hierarchical structure of control, is the identical mechanics. Because a project should be able to have an agent working on a project in a project should have a chat with another agent, no humans involved. They communicated between a
mhm.
project, and then some sort of result was achieved. Like that's how the mechanics need to work.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's that would be really, really powerful in terms of two organizations working on the same thing in deduping. Uh, there's some probably hidden complexity there in that that agent itself needs to have some kind of clearance level.
It's the same though.
But
It's just
once
the
it gets
same as an
clearance
actor.
level,
Like
then
there's really no
it's the same.
difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, that works. Um, yeah. All right,
Uh,
crack on with that one. What's next?
um, the front end stuff has been about getting a synchronizing mechanism going because
Hmm.
the the Git repo can be arbitrarily large, and in the case of the trucking guys, it's just the customer list is 27,000 individual customer records. Um, the transactions or the invoice history, the billing history, is maybe another several
Hmm.
million records, and so
Hmm.
the browser component needs a way to synchronize and stay in sync even when the repo size is large because it can't be calling out to the server every time it wants to do absolutely everything because no matter how good your server is, your experience will be quite sluggish. Um,
Hmm.
and so the last few days of work ignoring bugs have been around building that component, which me and O3 have built quite a performant, neat little synchronizer there that
Nice.
should allow
Yeah.
you to stay in sync with a very large number of files. It makes it easy to write programs that consume these little bits of files. You can say which parts of the repo you want to synchronize and which parts you don't. It can allow you to see history, so you can show what changed, like, what changed in the last hour, what changed in the last 2 days, those kinds of things. I haven't implemented those things. I've just made the design capable of it. So my primary goal is synchronize the customer list so that I can do a 30,000 row table of customer data where the customer data sits in the browser and you can search it in the browser. So you start typing in the Omnibox, and then it narrows down the customers that match your match what you type. But for example, the transactions or the transaction history will be pulled down only once you've drilled into a customer to save bogging down the browser.
Got it. This sounds very much your partnership, and I don't really have anything to add to that other than the outcome of that is obviously very useful.
Yeah, I know. I'm just very frustrated because I'm like, it's one of those things that, like, if I don't build that piece, then the user interfaces are shit and the user experience is shit. But then you could argue, well, people, is it more shit than signal groups? No, but it's one of those things. You could argue that I don't need to build this, but I could argue that the amount of time I'd spend fucking around trying to get a sluggish interface to perform better versus this component that makes it easy to build for and very snappy. Yeah, I guess that's a dealer's choice type of thing, or an artistic choice kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, obviously, Snappy is the better. The what we're dealing with now is in sequencing of what we need. Even a manual button that syncs would be fine, as opposed to doing it. I think you're doing it on the fly, what you're describing there.
It's live. It stays live. Yeah, and so from a user's point of view, it would be like sitting there and seeing chat messages come into you, sitting there seeing email arrive, rather than having to go and manually push the button.
Yeah. But pushing the button, would be obviously a shitty user experience, but would amount to the same outcome.
Yes.
And for now, probably be enough. Should be enough to work. Yeah. Okay.
So it's sort of like, well, I guess that's one of those ones that I could be grilled about, but my instinct is that to not have that component in the browser is it's hell. Like, it's hell for me, for writing programs that use it. It's hell for the users trying to use it. Like, it's a couple of days of effort to make everyone's like it's probably, put it this way, in terms of the amount of effort it takes versus the joy it will bring, there probably isn't a greater gain to be had for amount of effort to amount of usability in ways that people don't notice. Like, it's like, oh, it was instant, and then you're like, oh, what was it? Maybe not going to be instant. And you're like, yeah, that actually took effort to make it instant. It's those kinds of things that people don't even notice until they're not there. Like, you'll never get thanked for it.
Exactly.
But yeah,
exactly. It's like having to hit refresh to get your emails. It's like, yeah, don't want to do that.
That's right. Well, I
Okay.
mean, Signal importing from Signal is actually a bit of a mission. Like I said, I'd scope that at around about I'd scope that between 3 days and 1 week. But
Okay.
receiving an email is maybe like, a couple of days. So is email an even simpler thing, or
The issue there would be because there's so much traffic backwards and forwards.
it'd be
Um,
out of date?
Getting them to move, get them to move from one method to another
Is it
is
is it
probably going to
true
be
to,
one
is
of
it fair to
those
say then that
stoppers.
Signal is the CRM of choice just because it's there and switching's too hard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Until there's something that has a lot more than Signal, in which
But
case probably Signal
right,
wouldn't do
but
it.
it's never going to be a cold cut across. There's already a lot of value in Signal that needs to come. So Signal has to be ingested at the very least, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even if it was just a read, given individual
Right,
permissions,
but it also has to be a
pro-
live read, right? Like it would be unacceptable for me to say, okay, go into your Signal app, take a backup, upload it to Artifact, and there's your chats. Ta-da! Like that wouldn't work
yeah.
because the
No,
freshness,
definitely, because that's what I'm doing at the moment. It's like
right? So it needs
cut
to
and paste
be
in it or
live. Okay, well, we'll get the. We can maybe take advantage of this, although advantage is maybe not the right term, but if we get the repo system up and running, then that means that you and I can figure out those bits and we can pull in a few extra people. But because the main weight is carried by Signal, it's also not, we've got a little bit of freedom to improve it during the time it takes to plug in the Signal stuff. And so
Mhm.
if we're like developing, iterating on this base system, like I think, even just our quick discussion about permissions now just cut down the number of possible solutions radically. And then we'll
Yeah.
work on some prototypes there and get different members who are willing to put in the effort to not use Signal but use this system just to see how it goes and get that sorted out. And then I'll spend the week to pull in Signal.
Well, what we might find actually is a halfway house where um remember saying there's two types of
Yeah,
Signal
you're right,
groups.
right. So
There's
you might be like able to move just the serious group over to a
Yeah,
hybrid.
you've got a project, and now you're in
Right,
here. Yeah, and
right,
you go back to Signal to chat.
right. Because no matter what happens, the file repository is near the file system cannot be Signal. Like it's gonna be a
Yeah.
separate system to be the file system. And so if you're doing something serious, you have a file system. We are the file system, and so we can survive for a little bit without being directly connected to Signal, and then we'll just work on plugging that in, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that would be an easier transition
Yeah, okay.
because then the onboarding stuff, hi, who are you? Hi, this is me, that sort of thing, will be on Signal. And then it's like, right, now you've just been got permissions to this repo, crack on inside there. But you've always got Signal to come back to for the, water cooler chat or whatever.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yep, so that's what I'm doing. And I don't know, any day now, like tomorrow morning or something like that, I'll have the front end hooked up to the data in the back end if I can just get all my bugs sorted.
Brilliant. That's the thing I'm waiting on. Because we're ready for it on a
Yeah,
number of levels.
yeah, I
So
know. It's just I think that there's a couple of steps that we got to go through first, and I'm not sure what those are yet, but they're kind of like okay, here's a login and here's a system that's got this tree of repositories. Now what? Right? And it's like, well, okay, where do the metals go? Good question. I don't know. Here's a metal. No, okay. Then, how do we pay for this? Oh shit, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But at the moment, we're still, and in the next part of the conversation, I'll tell you where we're at with it. We're still in the convincing them that this is a better way of doing things than they're currently doing. And so, as visuals, it's a pitch really.
A pitch,
As
okay.
visuals are easier to understand than this long set of bullets which
Yeah.
describes it.
Yeah. So I guess like we're gonna build this piece anyway, so we should just build it in a hurry. So like it's literally the same system that goes into the trucking guys as anywhere else. It's just that for them we'll run a different instance. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in terms of being inside of Dreamcatcher, with different orgs
Mm.
that we talked about last time,
Yeah.
we must have about half a dozen now. There's about half a dozen we could put in day one, which would be a wrong
But
place
are
to put
they
it.
are they all
But
under TFU or are
there's
they projects?
no, no. TFU with its multiple projects. Then you've got the stuff that Marla and I have been doing,
Oh,
which
right. So
amounts
there's already
to
like a bunch of orgs, a bunch of
three, and
crossover
then there's
between them.
truckers.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
where do all the stacks go? Because if there's only repositories, you can't have one grandmaster repository that holds all the stacks because who would write to it and like how do the permissions work there?
Um, isn't that the Dreamcatcher inside of the Dreamcatcher that holds the stocks? Like you publish a stock to the Dreamcatcher.
Well, okay, you could think of it. There's two ways you could do it. You could have like stuck holders, which would act like a bulletin board, where like the TFU might have its stuck repo, and any stucks that are even remotely related to them all get put in there. You might this, and then as a viewer of stucks, you would just connect up to these different services like the TFU stuck publisher, the Marla and Someone publisher, the we'll have a version. And so you just basically pull in these news feeds, as it were, and that's the group of stuck. So that's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The other way to do it is to keep the stucks close to where they're made, where like in a given repo, each repo attached to its soul branch, that's where the stucks are maintained and held for that repo. And then if another repo sees that stuck and thinks of it as a duplicate, they can just clone it with provenance so that you can connect the two pieces of data together over time, but they are held in different places and they can fork and alter from each other independently. Like it's almost like a stuck is almost like a branch.
So, yeah, it seems something like that, isn't it? So, say if you got TFU, lots of projects. One project is got stocks, but they're not really expecting anyone else in any other project to solve them. It's amongst themselves. But those stocks, feel like an RSS feed, I guess, can go up to the org saying, here's all the stocks. Then we can run a bot over it and then suggest, hey, this project has got a very similar stock to your one. So you don't actually have to read all the stocks.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, there's
and
another way
then,
we could do it is making the stucks be sort of a standalone piece of data. Like the stuck could be associated with a a public key. So it's really just a piece of data that it's irrelevant whether it's stored in a repo or not. It's really just a piece of data with a signature on it. And that's what makes it a Stuck and allows you to, if you are the signature owner, you can publish the next version of it. And so it has an identity that's on a different plane to the repo because it's got identity independent of any repo where it sits. It makes it like a first-class entity so that the cryptographically secured units within our system are the repo and the Stuck. That's another way. But this architecture is thrilling. Like this is the problem to solve. Because if you make them part of a repo, they become subservient to a repo, and they become a lot like GitHub issues, which becomes very affiliated with that repo. You know, it's hard to get to. They're not able to be.
It's not really what we're trying to do
Yeah,
here.
yeah, right. And this is sort of like if you made it like a message with a signature on it, then it kind of it can go anywhere. It can be anywhere. You can hold a bunch of Stucks in your repo, but they're not owned by, they're owned by whoever holds the signature. You can fork it and make your own one, but they're still You know what I mean? Like I'm trying
like, needs a bit of thought, but I think it does work.
The floating thing, right?
If you are stuck in a repo, many of these Stucks might be quite small. In fact, they really get down to minutiae of ampage, what solder to use, that sort of thing. I was like, okay, not much value. However, a Stuck is a bit like putting a classified ad. Do you put the classified ad in your local newspaper? Do you allow that to be syndicated to a national newspaper?
Yeah, and so you want the provenance of the Stuck, but you want it to be published at many different places, and you want it to be moved around a lot. You don't want a repo. The parts of a repo should not be pulled apart and moved around because that's the opposite of the purpose of a repo. The purpose of a repo is to hold things together. But a Stuck needs to not be held together. So it's like the fucking antiparticle of a repo almost. And repos are supposed to be big, solid, long-lived. Stucks are meant to be tiny. They don't hold huge amounts of data, but they point. They're almost like they're annotations of a repo. They never would hold a video file. They would point to something like a repo that had a video file.
That's right. That's what I was thinking about as classified acts. It's like, wanted, we have spare room. Anyone want to live in this spare room? And then
you could have aggregators.
Then you need context, right? And it's like, and here's phone this number,
right?
And then the phone this number. You need context in order to actually see if you can. It's like what you'll get is with Stucks, someone else looking at it and going, I think I could solve that, but I don't have access to the repo or what they've done before, what they've tried before.
Right. And then you also want a lot of freedom to work with it. Like if an agent sits there and is like, here's 3 different Stucks, but they are the same. And so the agent would publish a merged one. It doesn't need the controls over all 3 of them. It would just simply say, here's a new Stuck. I'm the agent. I made it. It points in terms of provenance to these other Stucks. It is a merge. And then you would expect that a type of signaling would have occurred to the owners of those Stucks, like a polite, non-spammy kind of a messaging system, and then they could, if they chose to, accept the merge and be like, oh yeah, There's a greater chance of me getting a solution if I'm sharing my problem with multiple others. So yes, I accept that merge. Here's my signature saying I'm going to sign over to you. So what I think that we need to do is actually come up with a small set of mechanics for the maneuvers that you'd ever want to do with a stuck. And it's starting to look like it's the same thing that you would do with Git, but in a very lightweight. So it isn't Git because it doesn't have files. It just has pointers to Git-like objects, but the lifecycle manipulations are critical, like merge, fork,
Yeah,
escrow,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And there's also discovery. So publishing a stuck, if that stuck is well defined, and someone solved it 6 months ago, there's nothing more to be said. It's like, hey,
Right.
talk to
So,
these guys. They've got
yeah,
it
the
solved.
very nature of a stuck is cross repo. Like, as soon as you make a stuck in a repo, you want to go browse all the other stucks across all the repos and look for duplication or signs of connection, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
almost like it's a
absolutely.
fundamental
And
unit of
ma-
our physics.
and it's maybe even at the org level, the soul level of each org, to say, right, we will share stocks with this other org, but not that one, because
Right.
we don't know who those guys are.
Right.
Um,
Yep,
yeah, okay, I
that
think
sounds
there's something there
possible.
we can work on.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the stuck is like a data format that acts like a little cryptographically sealed piece of structured data,
yep,
and it
yep,
it can be iterated upon, so you can release a separate version of it. But it is, from the point of view of a repo, it looks like a file. And so a repo can store them and store them in different branches with different permissions. Like if it wants to publicize all but one, then it just stores all the stucks on a public branch except that one that it keeps private, and it manages that internally.
yeah.
And then, all right, like it feels like that's
That
sort of
should
the way
work.
to
And
go.
and then it falls back to it falls back to the previous permissions model that we were talking about.
Yeah, but that's
Um,
that's a file control model, whereas the
yeah,
Stux is not Stux is like, if you have access to the stuck, then you are reading it, and if you are the owner of the signature of the stuck, then you can release the next version of it, which may involve a limited number of life cycle operations like destroy, um, fork,
yeah,
merge, all
solve.
those things. Yeah,
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 no longer relevant. Yeah,
right, right, right.
yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Okay, that sounds like the thing. Okay, and then we'll just iterate a few times on that data structure, but more or less, I mean, fuck, what the hell else is it going to be, right? It's just, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Right. What time? Because I do. This is a hard stop. I've got 40 minutes.
40 minutes. All right,
A
shall we
lot of
switch
this
over?
will just. Um.
All
Yeah. Unless. Oh. Is there anything to see in the portal at the moment, or not really
right.
yet? As in running version, or
It is running, but the data that comes in is coming in as JSON, so it's not presentable.
all right. Okay.
All it would
Yeah.
show
Fair enough.
you is that there are 27,000 customers rolling in around about. In fact, I will show you, but it's got customer data, so I'll stop the recording on it before I show you.
Yep.
Well, have you been? How much time have you spent looking at the stats for O3?
The stats, not really.
Can you see my screen at the moment?
What do you mean? I can. Yep.
The how well it performs, the benchmarks.
Also, it's a bit small. That's better.
Is this?
Oh, I'm surprised because I'm a real fan of O4 Mini. I know O3, mind you, O4 Mini is fast.
03 is not that slow. I mean, yeah, 04 Mini is astoundingly good for the price and the speed, but 03 is the 03 is pretty good, man. Instruction following is a good one. The fact that it can use Python code during its reasoning step is fucking insane. The fact that it can do shit like zoom in on an image is insane.
I've not tried that one. I'll try it.
What was this? Yeah, cost and performance, blah, blah, blah. Who cares how much it costs? Yeah, no, all around, just an amazing model. Like, amazing and so well spoken. So there was a couple of standouts I wanted to point out. This is a good one. The Sweelancer. Like how much money it earned out of a potential $250,000 worth of tasks. That's a good indicator of how good the bot is. There was Humanity's Last Exam. Look, like 01 Pro is scoring like 8%, but yeah, 03 coming in at 25%. That's a given that, like, I think it was a year ago. GPT-4 was at like 4% or 3%.
Oh, it was tiny. It was tiny, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now it's like, you know, in a matter of 4 months, we've gone from 01 Pro at 8 to 03 at 25, which is pretty neck level.
Deep research is great, but it takes a long time.
Yeah, and its response is bloody wordy, right? But 03 is very well balanced. Code forces, yada yada. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's the coolest thing that I've ever seen. Actually, because I'm so tired because I've been working nonstop for a long time now. I would probably sound more excited, but it is so good.
Insert excitable.
Yeah, insert emoji. Blah blah blah. And good news for us, all of this is in the API, and will continue to expand out in the API. So that's good for us. All right, I'll stop the recording.